All right, we got a sick, very quick patch, hot fix for a lot of the main issues, but don't click off the video. Just said we got a lot to show you here for this hot fix. It came, what, 4 days after the DLC came out? They already got a hot fix out. For the big obvious stuff, the splash attack problem, where monstrous infantry and some monstrous cav sucked really bad. They reverted that and they fixed it. It feels great. But they also did a lot of big changes here. So added in this hotfix 6.01, 6.0.1, Khorngor's already got a nerf, which they needed. And it's just a little one. 2 less melee attack, 2 less melee defense, 25 less gold. But very quick and responsive to Khorngors, who were quite strong. And then Greenskins, Mangler Squigs got a pretty big nerf. We'll take a look at that in a little bit here. But 50 gold cheaper, which is a buff, but then they lost hit points per model. They lost 8 melee defense, and then they lost half their base weapon damage, and they lost around half their armor-piercing weapon damage. So pretty gigantic nerfs to the Mangler Squigs, who were massively overperforming. Massively overperforming. Snaglet Grobspit got 100 more gold. Arachnrock's Flinger got 50 more gold. It's pretty fine. Colossal Squig got more hit points and more melee attack, which is fine. And that's about it. For Khorne, Arball the Undefeated got 50 gold cost increase on his mount and on foot. Scylla Angfengrim lost 100 gold off the top and got a little more armor-piercing damage ratio. Skulltaker got 200 gold cheaper, 200 gold on his Bloodthrone cheaper as well. 250, wait, 150? 150 on his Juggernaut. So, a lot of buffs for Skulltaker there. Khorngors took the same nerfs they did on Beastmen. Skull Reapers got more hit points, more melee attack, more bonus for his infantry, so just more damage. Wrathmongers were the big winners, and again, we'll go into some of the examples later. But more hit points, more melee defense, but immune to flanking. Means if you charge them from behind, or if you just surround them, like if you have an infantry unit that just wraps around them, they are immune to flanking damage. And the splash attack fixes seem to have helped them too, but we'll get into that. Bloodwake Berserkers, same buffs. Blood Beasts of Khorne, my boys, got more melee defense, and they got more armor-piercing damage. 10 more armor-piercing damage for losing 5 base weapon damage. And they each got more hit points too. And I have things to say on the Blood Beasts. So for the Slaughter Brute, 100 gold off the top, more hit points, more melee defense, more armor-piercing damage, I guess. I still think he sucks, but it's good to see buffs for something that's so terrible. And then 200 gold cost increase for the Skull Cannon ROR. Very appropriate. For the Ogre Kingdoms, their hero got a little bit cheaper. Both of their heroes that they got here. Goldfag Maneater lost 100 gold off the top, and he got another big buff later, but we'll get there. Eshin Maneater got 50 gold cheaper. Whoa, in single player he was 1900 gold? That has to have been a misclick, so they evened him back out. Pigback Riders got a 25 gold cost increase. They're still going to be crazy strong. The ROR Knights got 50 gold cost increase, still going to be super strong. Blood Vultures got 50 gold cost increase, and the Thunder Tusk got 50 gold cost increase. It lost 10 melee attack, 2 melee defense, and 10 charge bonus. Regular Stonehorn got some buffs to catch up to its Thunder Tusk cousin. That's about it there. So, Squig thing. The Mangler Squig explosion went from 81 damage to 36 with a smaller radius. So that's over half its damage taken off those explosions. Squig Thinkin is the Squig summon for the Night Goblin hero. It got reduced to 1 use from 2, and its summon duration went to a more normalized 2 minutes instead of 150 seconds. Spider Hatchlings cost 200 gold instead of 150, sorry. Blow Apart, which is the Colossal Squig explosion, got more damage in a higher radius because it was terrible, and it's still not great. And then Blood Tally, that's the Khorne hero's Healy thing. That was terrible, and it takes forever to stack up, and if he didn't get a kill in a while, it would debuff and was just garbage. Deadeye is Goldfag Maneater's pistol. Instead of getting 3 uses, he has infinite. We'll talk a bit more about that later, but that is pretty huge. And everyone has their price. Another huge change. It causes Rampage. But enough of me saying we'll get into it. Let's just go get into it. Let's just take a look at some of this stuff. All right. We're going back to my DLC unit tier list, Omens of Destruction. Right, came out. It was good stuff. I put Slaughter Brutes in A. No one else did. All the other content creators laughed at me. They said this unit sucks. Now, none of us knew that there was a bug back then that disastrously impacted monstrous units. Let's just take a listen to what I said back then to put them in A. Blood Beasts. Sorry, Blood Beasts. A with an asterisk. On any other roster, Blood Beasts would be S tier, or for sure A. But this one, I think they're barely A, maybe B, because Minotaurs are only 250 gold more expensive, and Minotaurs do everything the Blood Beasts do slightly better, which they do. They're on the same power curve as Minotaurs. Price per gold, right? So like, if you pay 10 gold to get 10 stats, let's just say that. Minotaurs cost 1350 gold, they give you 1350 stats. Blood Beasts cost 1100 gold, they give you 1100 stats. Like, they are as powerful as Minotaurs, but price-wise. So, like, right, they're slightly worse than Minotaurs, but they're also slightly cheaper. All right, so I said they're Minotaurs, but cheaper, but not quite as good, and I took a ton of shit. Now, to be fair, other people were testing them versus infantry, they didn't do any damage, which we now learned is because of a bug. It's because of a bug. But I tested my boys for what I thought Khorne needed, because Khorne doesn't need more infantry killers. Khorne needed cavalry killers and single entity killers and bodies and mass and speed, which these guys brought to the table. So I compared them at the things Minotaurs already do. I didn't compare them for killing infantry, which maybe is my bad, but now with the monstrous infantry fixes, let's give these guys a real shot. They're real day in the sun. They got some more armor-piercing weapon damage, and they got the fixes. We're charging into various Marauders and Marauder champions. Let's go. Good impact damage, but they always had that. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. They're killing those infantry. They're even killing Marauder champions over here. These two are Marauder champions. Fighting the Blood Beasts. We've already routed Marauders. We've already routed more Marauders. We're gonna route Marauder champions. I told you they were A tier. I told you they were good. Nobody believed me. Nobody believed old human boy. 65 years of covering multiplayer content. 65 years. You don't trust me. You don't trust me yet. Look at these boys. Yeah, sure, they only have 28 melee defense. Sure, they have low armor, but for 1100 gold, you're getting crazy high weapon strength with Frenzy. Mark of Khorne gives them that. They have some spell resist, 35% spell resist. That could be pretty good. I don't know. They're fine. They got some more armor piercing damage, but like, yeah, I think they'll be solid. I think you'll use them whenever you don't have enough money for Minotaurs. And I did mention in the tier list video that like rating them on their own strength, I think they're A tier. But unfortunately, because they're on the Khorne roster, you can just take Minotaurs at the same time. But like, it was just the bug, baby. I told you this unit was good, and you didn't believe me. Well, there you go. Blood Beasts of Khorne are back. Better than ever. Okay, we'll get to some unintended consequences in a second. But what did I want to say over here? Well, I guess the Ogres had a lot of cool changes. Skulltaker got cheaper, which he needed. I know I just said Ogres and I came to Khorne. I was just looking over here. The Hellforged Bellowers we were seeing in every matchup, so I think 200 gold on them is appropriate. That's fine. Some good, really good changes there. I liked a lot of the patch notes changes. Two big ones are Goldfag Maneater and Greasus Goldtooth. So Greasus might actually start getting taken now because everyone has their prices and AoE Rampage ability, which is pretty huge. The Ogres don't have a Rampage. And Greasus's main problem, which I've discussed ad nauseum, and I have another video coming out soon about Gorbad. And it's a positive video about Gorbad. But like Greasus had an issue of being a stat stick with no reason to fight him. He was too slow to catch anyone and he had no nets. So giving him an AoE Rampage does force people to fight him if they get no bad situation. If he can catch up to someone and rampage him, then he can get his dueling done. And Greasus is a really good duelist if he actually gets a proper fight. And then Goldfag had a big issue with his design where he was meant to kind of be a hybrid melee and pistol guy, but then his Deadeye only had 3 casts and only affected lords and heroes and whatever. I guess now it affects a unit if it's a single entity. Maybe it did that before, but without 3 uses, that means he can effectively run in there, get some damage out, and then retreat and use Deadeye to snipe while healing up with his Bugmans. But before, it was just like, okay, this guy's not going to be able to kite much, so the infinite uses is good. So I really like those 2 changes for those 2 lords, and I think CA identified a lot of the problems. But we will have more of a synopsis on that at the end of this video. One of the tests I ran to see how units performed for my tier list, I had the Wrathmongers fight against the Hellforged Host because these are the same priced unit who have supposedly the same job, just fighting armored infantry. So I didn't see why you would take one over the other, and I did take the Bloodwake Berserkers, who are more expensive than the Hellforged Host, for doing the same job. Now, before this little hotfix, the Hellforged Host slammed them super quickly and very, very easily. Now, across the board, it's a pretty even fight, which is good. I mean, you have two anti-infantry armor-piercing units going against each other. You would hope that it's pretty even, and the ROR Bloodwake Berserkers beat the Hellforged Host that they are more expensive than, and then the rest is a bit of a wash. Like, this Wrathmonger is going to route, I believe this one routes as well, but this one wins, so it's like, you know, they trade about even. Overall, the Wrathmonger is performing a lot better, so you really like the buffs, and there's no unintended consequences. Alright, so there might have been unintended consequences. Wrathmongers have the problem of aspiring champions, where aspiring champions have crazy low model counts. So things like Mortis engines, a lot of spells, a lot of infantry interactions don't work correctly on them. And now that they're immune to flanking, they don't even take, like, repercussions from being a small amount of people. Because when they get flanked by, like, superior numbers, they don't take any extra damage or anything. So that's a little tricky. And here's a funny example that I've seen going around my Discord is that they can beat Kugath Plaguefather because his Mortis engine doesn't affect them nearly as much as it does other units since they have a lesser model count. They do magic damage and all that stuff. Oh, does he get rid of magic damage somehow? I swear they did it. Maybe it's just the ROR that does magic damage. But even without magic damage, I mean, they're beating his ass. He uses Fleshy Abundance on himself to heal Cap, but it's not enough. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I have heard anecdotal stories of them just rampaging through entire armies and not taking much damage at all. So they might be overbuffed. I think the splash attack changes actually help them too because their weapon strength is actually super high. So something to keep an eye out for, but overall, they were so terrible that they needed some buffs. So if they overshot the mark a little bit, whatever. One more big unit change to talk about. And then we'll have our little synopsis message at the end. Mangler Squigs. Manglers got super nerfed. Their explosion damage got nerfed, their regular damage got nerfed, their melee defense got nerfed. So now we're going to run the same tests I ran before. War Lions of Krace, who did just get buffed because the splash attack stuff was fixed. So this test should be a little more fair this time. But Fireborn, 2 Fireborn, 2 War Lions, each versus their own pair of Mangler Squigs. And this is what should be a counter to the Mangler Squigs is Monstrous Infantry. And then what should do okay into the Mangler Squigs is the best anti-large cavalry in the game, but they are tightly packed, so that'll mean the explosions do more damage to them. But the explosions did get nerfed, so now they're only 66% armor piercing instead of 100%. So on the far side, we can see this Fireborn has already won their battle. The Mangler Squigs just around paid for themselves fighting the Fireborn, which is still like a good trade. As a greenskin, you would want that, a unit paying for itself by getting in a fight with a very expensive unit. The Fireborn lost about 17 models, mostly just took health damage. This other Fireborn is still doing quite well. So it depends on where the explosions go off in the unit, whether they do too much damage. But the War Lions, on the other hand, are doing pretty darn well, and they're taking very little damage in return. So the Monstrous Infantry are countering the Mangler Squigs as they should. Cavalry, more of a wash, because the Fireborn are much more expensive than the Mangler Squigs. Because after the cost decrease, you have to think that the Fireborn are almost twice as expensive as a Mangler Squig. So it was not a bad trade for the Mangler Squigs at all, but now you can sacrifice cavalry to them more meaningfully than you could when they were super overpowered, and Monstrous Infantry can actually counter them as they should. If you look here at the values, one of them fighting the Fireborn paid for itself, another one fighting the Fireborn, I believe it was this one, only got 560, so it depends on where those explosions go off, and then the ones fighting the War Lions did not get very much done. I can tell which one's which because they have more kills. 11 kills and 17 versus 5 and 2, because the Fireborn just have more models. So now we've seen how they do versus Fireborn, which should be a wash, and then their counter, Monstrous Infantry. How do they do against Halberds, which is tricky, because Halberds generally counter Monstrous Infantry, but the Mangler Squigs are kind of designed to defeat Halberds. You know, with their explosions and their crazy animations and stuff. So we'll see how they do. They charge in, they still knock around the Phoenix Guards. They're pretty resistant to charge defense and charge reflection. And I know people are going to go in the comments again and be like, you don't understand how those work. I do, but like, if you're on your ass, that's less time for you to use the charge reflection stats on the opponent before it wears off, right? So there's that. But the Mangler Squigs are not doing like any damage to the Phoenix Guard until their explosions start going off. And then they start getting a bit, but not a ton. So they're countered by halberds now, which I guess it depends on your state of mind, whether that's a good thing or not. So I don't know. Because they're kind of supposed to be really good versus any infantry. I guess they got decent value. Yeah, they got decent value for sprinting into Phoenix Guard. And lastly, we'll have a Mangler Squig fight a non-combat dragon. So non-combat dragon is just like, I'm not putting it against Imric or something. I'm putting it against a hybrid dragon caster lady. But my final thoughts on the Mangler Squig, we'll see how it plays out in tournaments and stuff. I think this is a lot healthier than what it was. I do think they might have been over-nerfed, because they're still crazy weak to ranged. So I think these guys might have been over-nerfed. They got 50 gold offs, they're 950 gold, but they lose the halberds, which, debatable whether you think that should be appropriate or not. They trade even with cavalry, they lose the monsters infantry, and they're weak to ranged. That kind of just leaves them at being good at fighting chariots and fighting non-anti-large infantry, I guess. And they're okay versus non-combat single entities. Like, this lady got 1,000 value back for dealing, getting dealt 1,400 value. So, but she's a mage caster, so like Imric would probably body these fools. So I don't know. I honestly think Mangler Squig's probably overshot a bit, and they could use some buffs again. Because despite what YouTube comments say, I don't want this unit to suck. I also just don't want it to be so broken, overpowered that it completely dominates multiplayer. And in campaign, it's just 19 stacks of these, or you're an idiot who's wasting their time. It's like, when a unit is so ridiculously overtuned, you feel bad for not taking it. And if the AI takes it, ugh, unbreakable bloated corpses killing all your units if you're not playing the greenskins, that sure sounds fun. So, I'm glad they tuned it down. Probably overshot it a little bit. But here's the thing, and this is my honest take. If you still have this opinion, then fine. But I really don't think our takeaway from this should be, wow, CA, broken game. Like, they screwed up the splash tags. How could that happen? Or they overshot the Wrathmongers, and now those guys can just, like, kill Kugath, apparently, or kill Kislev armies without taking any damage. Or, wow, they overshot it, and they gutted Mangler Squigs. Mangler Squigs used to be OP. Wow, CA sucks. I really don't think that's what we should take away from this, and it would just depress me a lot if that was the end result. Like, so for those exact examples, yeah, those probably still need some work. Mangler Squigs might need a buff. Who knows? We'll see how the meta shakes out. Wrathmongers probably need some tuning down. Like, all that stuff's true. Should they have screwed up the splash attacks? No. But they did release a hotfix 4 days after the fucking patch, after the DLC came out. That's a really quick turnaround time. And that is like a land speed record for this company. They're not usually that quick on the uptake. So they listened, they did their best, and they fixed it pretty quickly. So while it doesn't wipe away like, oh, it's fine that you screwed up because you fixed it quick, it's like, I mean, that's something. It's not great that they broke it, but it's something. And then I would say that overall, this is a net positive because they were so quick to buff up Skulltaker, who needed it. But also, they clearly took a decent look at community feedback about Golgfag not really having an identity and giving him more kite potential so he could actually use his healing. Like, that's a nuanced thing. That's not like 25 gold off the top and call it good. It's like, oh, that actually really helps him out. Greasus getting a rampage, well, some people are saying there's rampage bloat, and that's a different conversation, and maybe that's true. They did identify correctly that there's no reason to fight Greasus, and he can't use his stats, so they found a way to fix it instead of, 100 gold off the top, and he's fixed, ho ho ho. So, yeah, they buffed some of the units that need buffs, they nerfed some units that need nerfs, all in 4 days after the patch. And I think that's really commendable, and I think we should... I don't think we should be the type of community that is silent when CA does good and is very loud when they do bad. I think we should be very loud when they do bad, but I also think we should congratulate them or thank them when they do things right. So I'm really happy with this hotfix. I think it's super cool. It's way earlier than I thought. I thought we were going to maybe get a hotfix Thursday, and it would be literally just like, here's 3 campaign bug fixes, and here's the splash tag bug fix. I didn't think they'd do any balance this early on, so... I mean, hopefully people like this video. Hopefully it summed up all the changes in the hotfix. But also, yeah, like, shout out to CA. Good for them. Hope you guys keep it up. Gives me some hope that there might be more DLCs for this game. there's a pessimist in all of us in the gaming community, not just Warhammer, like gaming in general. It's not a great time to be a gamer. There's some great games out there, but there's also some very predatory money schemes. So CA's dividing up the DLCs so you can buy just what you want, or you don't buy any of it and you get some decent, you get some decent free LC content. So it is what it is. Oh yeah, and then there's a bug. Hold on. This wasn't new. It's just not fixed in the hotfix, but just a heads up. Certain greenskin banners don't have WA. I know one, for instance, is the top knots. The top knots, if you load into the game, you don't have a WA bar. So just a heads up for that. If you're playing online, you get confused, maybe avoid sub factions, or at least load into a game versus AI and see if your favorite sub faction has WA before you go online. Because some of them just don't. You just don't get it. And that's a bug that happened before in Warhammer 3. I forget where it was. But see, there's no WA bar here on the right side for the top knots. I don't know why that is. It is really weird. Anyway. I'll just load this up and then we'll call it a day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Normally I do patch rundowns as a live stream, but this was just a hot fix. So I thought I'd do a video instead. Try and show people some of the good shit. There we go. WA bar's back, baby. WA bar is right there. Goodbye, everybody. Subscribe if you haven't. Roar. Subscribe, yes, yes.